Hey everyone, Alan here, just bringing you a video presentation on calories for fat loss. So what I'm going to do is, because it's kind of our theme for the month, is to go through calories from the very start and things we should kind of watch out for, and it's kind of more of an educational component to this as well. So basically what we're trying to do is bring you step by step right the way through from calories, figuring out what they are, how they matter, the different schools of thought, I guess, on calories, and what we're trying to do. So um, the first thing is just essentially what is a calorie. So some people probably don't realize, we hear it all of the time, but maybe we don't necessarily take much notice. We notice calories in things, but essentially a calorie is a unit of measurement for energy. So all calories are energy, and like food is made up of energy, food is made up of calories. So all foods, whether it's protein, carbohydrates, or fat, are going to contain calories. And essentially, the actual definition for a calorie is it's the amount of energy it would require to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of water by 1 degree Celsius. So that's a kilocalorie, which is a kcal, which you see on food. So it's actually a unit of measurement for energy. And within that framework of calories being energy, the differences between carbohydrates, proteins, and fats are given there as well. So carbohydrates contain 4 calories per gram. So if you eat 50 grams of carbohydrates, that's equal to 200 calories. And protein is 4 calories per gram as well. So if you eat 50 grams of protein, that's 200 calories. But fat is 9 calories per gram. So if you eat 50 grams of fat, that's 450 calories. So fat contains more than double the amount of energy per gram than carbohydrates or proteins. Now there is some foods. Obviously, you'll see things that are like calorie-free foods and different things, and they're artificial foods. So but for the most part, all food on planet Earth is some form of carbs, proteins, fat, and each thing contains those amount of calories. And basically, calories are energy, and they contribute to the amount of energy that we take in. So, just in terms of like importance of calories, the like in terms of where they rank in terms of like performance nutrition principles. So that would be our like pyramid for the overall nutrition kind of approach. And calorie balance is going to be the foundation. So it's going to be the most important part. And I'll go through a few little differences or changes in that in terms of like what really affects that kind of how important it is. But essentially, calorie balance is going to be the biggest factor in terms of like reaching your goals, whether that's fat loss or gaining weight or whatever it may be. Now, there's a lot more to it, and it gets a lot more nuanced, but essentially, calorie balance is going to be the most important thing, followed by macronutrients, which is going to be the amount of protein, carbs, and fat that you consume, followed by timing, which is going to be like timing your proteins spread throughout the day, timing your carbs, post-training, pre-training, and then it's food composition, which is going to be ensuring that you get maximum value out of the foods you eat in terms of the micronutrients, antioxidants, all of that, and then supplementation on top, which is going to be like if you're looking at it similar to the shape of the pyramid, if you look at it like baking a cake, the calorie balance is going to be the big main part, and like supplementation is going to be like sprinkling on the icing on top, or whatever the little things you put on top of the cake are going to be. So when it's as simple as that, and we understand that all calories are energy, you'd wonder then why all the confusion in terms of like, why we read so much conflicting information around nutrition, or you pick up a magazine, books, like there's how many different books and magazines on all these different ways to eat, when it should really be a little bit simpler. And the reason why it's confusing is you've got two kind of major schools of thought, and what they are is you've got some people on one side that are very much focused on saying that calories are the only thing that matter, and they throw everything else out. That just, it all comes back to that, the calories are the only thing that matter, so focus on that and forget everything else. And often there's a few kind of ways of eating that fit that kind of school of thought, and that might be like if it fits your macros, you might see that on Instagram and stuff like that. Or particularly, this is one that you will see more commonly followed in like bodybuilders or people that are like maybe powerlifters or people that are trying to gain muscle mass and gain weight, and they can kind of eat a lot of shitty food because they're trying to gain weight, or they're just trying to like get to a certain calorie number. So you'll see, and people when they do this, people will flaunt it. So that's why you see on Instagram, you'll see people eating big bowls of Cocoa Pops after training and different things because they're just literally trying to get calories and sugar into them. And like they're right in some ways in saying that calories are the only things that matter, and you could believe that and just follow that. But what that misses then is the whole aspect of all of your micronutrients, all of the antioxidants, all of the internal health benefits that come from eating correctly. So you can follow that to the letter of the law and you can lose weight, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're doing the best for your health internally. So you can have a really shitty diet and lose weight, or you can have a really, really, like in theory, healthy diet of, whole, clean, unprocessed foods, and you can be eating tons of veg, doing all of this stuff, really, really healthy diet, but you can still gain weight if you're eating too much. So that rule in terms of calories always needs to be respected for sure. And then you've got other people on the other side of things that are like calories don't matter at all, and that's some schools of thought for this way of eating might be like something like a paleo or a more holistic approach where people would be like, forget about calories, like, calories don't matter, just eat whole, natural, clean, processed foods, cut out sugar, cut out junk or whatever. And like some ways that kind of works in a way, but it works because by cutting out the sugar, cutting out the junk, cutting out big portions and stuff like that, you end up creating a calorie deficit or you bring your calories down. So that's what kind of causes the confusion a bit. And where we kind of sit, or where we try to be, is just kind of in the middle in terms of like both sides of the story have like some valid points, but they both miss some clear things as well. So you can be focused on eating really clean, healthy, unprocessed foods, but still gain weight. And you can be, same on the other side, if you're only focused on calories, people can go down the road of kind of just eating a crappy diet or not really too concerned about how good the food they actually are eating once it ticks the boxes in terms of kind of the amount of calories. So that's kind of what causes a lot of the confusion in the nutrition world in terms of like the people, and they often butt heads and be like, oh, this is the right way, this is the right way. And realistically, what we try to do and what everyone should ideally do is like take the best parts of everything and be kind of, some scenarios, maybe at some times of the year that maybe you get a little bit more focus on calories, but you're still looking at trying to maximize every meal, every opportunity in terms of like, right, it's just a food that is good and is going to give us more vitamins and minerals and micronutrients and stuff like that, as opposed to just only focus on the calories. So just to go over what actually contributes to our calorie balance, and basically that's what it's all about. The most important thing is your average calorie balance, and that's over the course of every day, week, month, year, which I'll go through some examples of what can happen based on that. But the chart on the left looks at your percentage of daily energy, or total daily energy expenditure. Okay, so everything comes down to a calorie balance. We consume a certain amount of calories and we expend a certain amount of calories. And if we consume more than we expend, we will gain weight. If we burn more than we consume, we'll lose weight. But again, that can get a little bit more detailed, which I'll go through. So 70% of our daily energy expenditure is based on your basal metabolic rate. So your basal metabolic rate is based on the amount of lean mass you have. So if you have 50 kilos of lean mass, you won't burn as much energy as someone who has 55 kilos of lean mass. And that's just your body's natural process of like just upregulating things, of maintaining your body, of just needing to continue and make everything function. That's your basal metabolic rate. So that makes up 70% of what your daily energy expenditure is. And then 15% is your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. So that's like walking around, that's getting up out of bed, that's standing up, going over to the kitchen, that's sitting down, that's going upstairs. That's all of these things that contribute to you burning energy each day. And then you have 10% of your daily energy burn is the thermic effect of food. So this is like every time you consume food, your body expends energy preparing that food for digestion, moving along your digestive tract. So protein will have a higher thermic effect of food than say carbohydrates or fats, because your body needs to break down protein. Say so by eating a higher protein diet, we increase the amount of energy we expend daily through this thermic effect of food. And then lastly, which is about 5% of your total daily energy expenditure, is exercise activity thermogenesis. So this is your exercise. Now, obviously, it'll depend on how much exercise someone does, but in general, it's only worth about 5% of your totally burn in terms of like, you know, that's maybe hopping on a treadmill, that's doing a workout, that's doing whatever. So they're the factors or things that can contribute to your daily energy expenditure. So it's just good to have a knowledge in terms of what actually contributes to your energy expenditure. So once we have a figure and we have an understanding in terms of what your energy expenditure is, we can kind of come to this calorie balance. I think my screen is cutting off the bottom section, which is fat loss. So your calorie balance, as I said, is the at the end of the day the amount left in terms of you've either burned more than you've consumed, or you've consumed more than you've burned. So if you consume more energy than you expend, you're said to be in a calorie surplus. And there's only two real states your body can be in. You're either in a surplus or a deficit. You can technically be eucaloric, which is like they exactly meet and cancel each other out, but it would be impossible to ever estimate if you're there or not. So all the time you're either in a surplus or deficit. So if you're in a calorie surplus, your body will build tissue. So you have an excess of energy and your body will store that energy and build tissue. Now that tissue can be muscle gain or it can be fat gain. So if you're looking to build muscle, we want you to be in a calorie surplus. So if you're working out and you're in a surplus and you're eating adequate protein, your body will build muscle. But let's say you're not exercising at all, you're in a calorie surplus, your body will build tissue, that tissue will be fat. So you can go, your body will build muscle or fat depending on the more detailed aspect of your diet in terms of like your macros, but also your exercise activity. So your standard person that like maybe the average person nowadays that is maybe obese or definitely overweight in terms of like your general population, they've been in a calorie surplus for X amount of time and maybe aren't exercising enough, so they lead to this fat gain. Now the opposite side of that equation is if you are in a calorie deficit, your body will break down tissue. And when your body breaks down tissue, that tissue can be muscle or it can be fat. So the ideal scenario, which we want to try to do out of the four for fat loss, is we want people to be in a calorie deficit and we want them to be burning fat. So the ways that we do that and the ways that we protect your muscle during fat loss are by eating adequate protein. So protein every meal will help hold on to the muscle you do have, and by exercising and using the muscles. Because when you use your muscles, they break down and your body is in a constant kind of process of like rebuilding and remodeling muscle, and that process protects the muscle as well. The other things that can affect a surplus and a deficit are the speeds at which you go in it. So if you like just eat 10,000 calories a day and you have like a massive surplus really quickly, it's more likely to go towards fat. And similarly, if you starve yourself and you go into a really big calorie deficit, you're more likely to lose muscle. So what we want is a gradual calorie deficit, whereby we will drop our weight, lose tissue, with that tissue mainly being fat. And what we do try and have is that like people aren't always in a deficit. So like that's why people can have, like that sort of cheat day and different things. Or if people are in maintenance, they'll probably switch between surplus days and deficit days more often, because we're trying to protect muscle and keep them around at that state. Because if someone is starved totally and in like a massive deficit all the time, your body will expend less energy as a protective kind of mechanism, whereby you don't want to be essentially like long term just always starving yourself, because your body will react and you'll maybe binge eat or go the other way then to get some calories back. So we want to be in a slight deficit the majority of the time and to focus on that fat loss. So, just as an example, and so this is a shot from our calorie and macronutrient calculator that is up on the page. So again, like we ideally go through this for maybe a little bit of like do it for a couple of days, and then you kind of figure it out and realize where you should be, shouldn't be, what a fat loss day looks like, and then you can kind of eyeball it from there. But this is an average 35-year-old person, 70 kilos, 170 centimeters, just as an example. This would calculate their calories at about 1600 calories, 1650 calories, say, for fat loss. So when if you're going off that, and that's your target. So if we're looking at a fat loss example, it would be like 5 meals a day. So if your breakfast, lunch, and dinner being your three main meals, they would be like 450 calorie meals, and that leaves room for two 150 calorie snacks. So just to give you an example of what that might look like, if you go out to lunch then and you go to Starbucks or you go to wherever and you have like an 800 calorie lunch, like a big sandwich and a latte or something, it doesn't leave much room left for the rest of your day. So it's just kind of having a better understanding of like what that looks like when you actually break it down per meal. And again, that would be done like once or twice. You figure out, you understand then what a 500 calorie meal looks like compared to a 900 calorie meal. And then once you do that, it's kind of a little bit easier. So just some of the like common questions that come up then in terms of like calories. So like, are all calories equal? Or you'll hear people say that like not all calories are equal. So like in terms of like the law of thermodynamics, like all calories technically are equal, but where calories aren't equal are by, obviously they will have some other effects like hormonal effects on food, but also like the micronutrient and macronutrient breakdown of foods are going to have an impact. So, um, like if someone is having, say, 100, if someone has a donut and that's 300 calories, it's mainly going to be like sugar and high GI carbs and not much else. So whereas if someone has 300 calories from maybe like some scrambled egg with some vegetables, you're going to get like a lot more vitamins, you're going to get micronutrients, you're going to get more protein, you're going to have all of that thing. So like there's more to it than just like 300 versus 300. And that's basically answered that question too in terms of like what are empty calories. So empty calories are like a high calorie food that doesn't really give you much in the way of micronutrients or vitamins or anything like that. Whereas like you've got some foods, like if you have like a bowl of broccoli, you're going to get like tons of vitamins and tons of fiber and stuff like that for a low amount of calories, say. How do I know how many calories I need? And this is like a really good question, because what hopefully you'll have seen then is like your calorie demands will kind of fluctuate a little bit. So like if you lose 10 kilos, your calories will change. If you put on a couple of kilos of muscle mass, your calories change. If you're on a training day, I mean, your calories might change a little bit compared to non-training. So like, and there's lots of different calculators and things out there. We have our own calculator, which is it's based off one of the most common equations, but like some people will get a different reading from my fitness pal set, but they're all just equations to guess how many calories you need. Everything we're doing is just guessing how many you need, and we kind of guess how many we take in, and then hopefully we see good results. But like what we're trying to do is create a calorie deficit by reducing your carbohydrate intake. We want to keep protein there to protect your muscle. We want to keep fat there. So when we reduce carbohydrates, it's literally to create a calorie deficit. Um, and so just to go back on that, how do I know how many I need? It's just based on a few different factors. So you can just do a calculator and kind of work it out, and we have that calculator there. And then what are like the points or sin systems? And like we haven't had much discussion on these in a while, which is kind of good. Like obviously the Slimming world or Weight Watcher world like had these points and sins and different things, and like this is a zero sin food and this isn't. When you have an understanding in terms of like the laws of it, like basically the laws of biology in terms of like, right, calories are energy, all like it doesn't matter where the calories come from, they contribute to your daily total. Like so there, it doesn't make any sense for things that have points or sins or anything like that. There's no such thing as like a these are free or whatever, they're still calories, like it's still energy. So um, that's why like those systems are just totally flawed. But what they ultimately are trying to do as well is to get people into a calorie deficit, but they don't pay any attention to protein or exercise or anything like that. So yeah, we've kind of gone over them as well before. Um, so in terms of just like having said all of that, it can be confusing. There's a lot to take in, but literally, if we want to just simplify it and break it down, if for fat loss, if you track your weight, for maintenance people, weight might be the best measure because their weight might jump a lot. But let's say fat loss is your primary focus and you've got some weight to lose, you track your weight, um, or track your body fat if you have a way of measuring it, or simply take some pictures or look at the size of your clothes. And if your clothes are getting too big for you, if you're having positive results, if your weight is coming down, your body fat's being improved, you've been in a calorie deficit. That's a fact. So that's really good, and then it's an easy way of doing it. So you just track your weight, and then you've been in a deficit. And in terms of like maintenance or more fitness-based stuff, if you're tracking your fitness, if you're able to keep up with the workouts, you're able to get through class, you feel your fitness is improving, your heart rate is improving, being able to recover better, your resting heart rate's better, all of that sort of good stuff. That's perfectly usable information in terms of that your muscle is either being maintained, you're gaining muscle, or the muscle you have, you're at a higher recruitment rate. So you're actually more efficient with the muscle you do have. So having said everything in terms of like the calories, literally, if we just do those things, you don't necessarily need to worry about all of the other stuff. And you just have to ideally be in a calorie deficit, and keeping up your fitness levels will ensure that we know that you're keeping your muscle mass as well. Um, so yeah, that's kind of everything. Hopefully, that's a good breakdown in terms of like what calories are, kind of the importance of them, and the ways around using it, making it work to your advantage, say, and then how the different levels in terms of like how much detail you can go into or choose not to go into. But there's a way for everyone. There's a solution for every kind of example, whether you want to track, not track, whether whether you're fat loss, maintenance, whatever it is. But hopefully that's given everyone a better kind of understanding of it. So any questions, as always, just let us know. And yeah, thanks for listening.